friends. I'm Tim Curtis. I'm the Director of the Regional Office for South Asia here in New Delhi, and it's a great pleasure for me to be welcoming you today. Children across the country are preparing for their first year of school, curious, eager, and ready to learn. But for some, one of their earliest challenges will not be the lesson itself, but the language in which it is taught. This is because language is not just, of course, from the outside, but something that grows from who the learner already is. And that distinction matters deeply in education. It is why language sits at the heart of inclusion, dignity, and learning. So to begin, it's a pleasure to be inviting the students of Sardar Patel Vidyalaya. Sorry, I didn't pronounce that right. You'll have to forgive my own linguistic incompetence. For a multilingual musical rendition of Rabindranath Tagore's Gitanjali, sung in Bangla, Hindi, and Gujarati, celebrating the beauty and boundless nature of the divine and transformative power of music. So here we'll have a
Good morning. Today, students of Sardar Patel Vidyalaya present to you verses from Gitanjali, Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore's timeless offering to the soul. The words, simple yet profound, cross boundaries of language and culture. As they unfold in many tongues today, let us be reminded that truth, devotion, and humanity speak one universal language, that of compassion, where the word is without fear, where the head is held high. Thank you.
চিত্ত যেথা ভয়শূন্য, উচ্চ যেথা শির,
জ্ঞান যেথা মুক্ত, যেথা গৃহের প্রাচীর,
ভারতের সেই স্বর্গে করো জাগরিত।
જ્યાં આ ધરતી ઘરના આંગણા કે તેની ચાર દિવાલોના બંધનમાં નથી હોતી, જ્યાં હૃદયના ઊંઝળતા ઝરણામાંથી નવી રચનાઓનું સર્જન થાય છે. ભારતને તે જ સ્તર સુધી તમે જાગૃત કરો.
भारत
Thank you so much, dear students, for that wonderful singing, the lovely singing. I think it set us in a perfect mood for the discussions today, showcasing, of course, the linguistic richness of India, and the spirit of multilingualism that we are celebrating today. As some of you may know, UNESCO, here in our office in Delhi, has established a tradition of publishing now an annual flagship report as our contribution to the education discussion and conversation in India. So our journey started several years ago with the first report on inclusion and education of children with disabilities. And since then, that was, I think, in 2019, our reports have covered topics of technical and vocational education and training in 2020, the issue of teachers in 21, climate change education in 2022, artificial intelligence in education, and last year, our 2024 report centered on arts and culture education, which obviously has important links with this year's focus. So today we turn to a theme central to equitable learning, mother tongue and multilingual educations. And over the next hour, you will hear the compelling evidence-based base for establishing mother tongue and multilingual education as the foundation for educational inclusion, for linguistic diversity safeguarding, and enhancing learning outcomes. And this will be done through stories and testimonies and learning about the frameworks and global commitments that guide UNESCO's work. UNESCO has been encouraging mother tongue instruction in primary education ever since 1953, highlighting its advantages from the very beginning of the organization's founding. In 2003, UNESCO released Education in a Multilingual World, a report acknowledging the global reality of multilingual education and the challenges and opportunities it presents. That position paper established three guiding principles. Firstly, mother tongue instruction. Education should begin in the learner's first language or mother tongue to ensure better understanding, cognitive development, and academic success. The second guiding principle, concerning bilingual or multilingual education, that schools should promote multilingual education by gradually introducing second and third languages while maintaining the mother tongue. This helps support learners' social integration and enhances their communication skills. And thirdly, concerning language policy and planning. Governments and institutions should develop language policies that promote linguistic diversity, inclusion, and equal access to quality education for all linguistic groups. So, in line and to strengthen these principles, UNESCO's Languages Matter, the global guidance on multilingual education published this year in 2025, provides a comprehensive framework for designing, implementing, and sustaining multilingual education system. It emphasizes learner-centered language pathways, inclusive pedagogy, community participation, and context-responsive planning, all of which have informed the analysis and recommendation in our report for India this year. As we are all of us keenly aware, the linguistic landscape across the globe has steadily changed with the influence of globalization, migration, and technological developments. And with this development has come growing recognition of the importance of mother tongue and multilingual education. So as part of the research for this report, our team traveled across India, including to Odisha, Telangana, and Andhra Pradesh, visiting schools, institutions, as well as civil society organizations. During the fieldwork in the Saura-speaking communities in Odisha, the UNESCO team met an elder who shared his story of the one and only day that he went to school. On that day, his very first time to go to school, the teacher spoke only in Odia, a language he didn't understand. Overwhelmed, he ran away from the classroom and never returned. It was a moment that shaped the course of his life. Today, his grandchild attends school in the same village, in Gajapati, Odisha, but under very different circumstances. His grandchild is learning to speak, read, and write first in Saura, alongside then the other languages. In a powerful reversal, the grandfather now learns from his grandchild, capturing the transformative potential of mother tongue and multilingual education. Our 2025 State of the Education Report for India connects strongly to the Sustainable Development Goals, especially, of course, SDG 4 on quality education, but also SDG 5 on gender equality and SDG 10 on reducing inequalities. The publication is the product of consultations with academics, state governments, the national government, NGOs, teachers, community members, and perhaps most importantly, students themselves. It is also a culmination of months of work shaped through 8 consultations, 3 editorial board meetings, and contributions from experts and participants across the country. So it's really an honor and a delight to launch this report and share its insights and recommendations with you, because it truly was a collaborative effort. And so I'd like UNESCO headquarters, Professor Ramesh Gaur, Director of the Kala Nidhi Division of the Director of the Kala Nidhi Division of the Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts, Dr. Deer Jingran, Founder and Director, Language and Learning Foundation, Dr. Ajit Mohanty, Professor Emeritus at JNU, Dr. R. Kartik Narayanan, and I again apologize for any mispronunciation, Director and co-founder of the Council for Diversity and Innovation and Chief Community and Data Officer at Unreal Tech LLP. Ms. Sadhna Pandey, our colleague from UNICEF and Chief of Education at UNICEF India, and Ms. Sarah Rogerson, Director of English and School Education South Asia at the British Council. I do hope that this report can help strengthen multilingual education in India and support the creation of an even more inclusive, culturally grounded education system. So with that, I'd like to once again thank all of you for coming today. And from here on, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Joyce Poan, who's the Chief of the Education Sector here at UNESCO, who's going to guide us through today's program. Thank you very much, everybody. Dhanyawad.
Thank you very much, Tim, for opening today's program. And to our guests, UNESCO mein aapka swagat hai. Good morning, everybody. So, from sound to sight, I now invite you to watch a short video that captures the essence of why UNESCO has chosen the topic of mother tongue education and multilingual education as the theme of this year's report. Please enjoy.
Language is not just a medium of communication, but also participation, identity, and expression. For equitable and inclusive education, we must integrate home languages and community knowledge. To ensure teaching and learning in every tongue, UNESCO sees the way forward by centering language and indigenous knowledge in education reform. Mother tongue-based multilingual education is key to ensure children from different linguistic backgrounds feel like they belong in the classroom. In states like Odisha, with significant tribal populations, systemic policies have been crucial to ensure classroom interaction and strong early comprehension.
जो मल्टीलिंगुअल एजुकेशन है उससे फ़ायदा ये है कि जब मल्टीलिंगुअल एजुकेशन नहीं था तब बच्चे स्कूल आने से डरते थे, क्योंकि मैं स्कूल जाऊंगा तो वहाँ पर ओडिया से मुझे पढ़ाया जाएगा, मुझे तो ओडिया मालूम नहीं है, इसलिए उस टाइम बहुत ड्रॉप आउट होता था। जब 2006 में एमएलई आया है, क्लास 1 और क्लास 2 स्टूडेंट को हमने ओनली उनके लैंग्वेज से उनको पढ़ाने के लिए टीचर्स को हमने ट्रेनिंग दी, तो फिर क्या हुआ, बच्चे जो हैं वो भी स्कूल आने से बहुत खुश है, क्योंकि मैं स्कूल जाऊंगा तो हमारे लैंग्वेज में हमें पढ़ाया जाएगा और कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होगा।
These policies have fostered multilingual interaction in classrooms.
मैं यहाँ जब आई तो मैंने देखा सांता लैंग्वेज, मुंडा लैंग्वेज की बच्चे भी है, वो उनकी भाषा से बात कर रहे थे। उनको मैं कहा कि अपनी लैंग्वेज भी सिखाओ, मैं भी अपनी लैंग्वेज सिखाऊंगी। तो मैं अभी संताल थोड़ी समझ पाती हूँ, संताल मुंडा भी थोड़ी और संबलपुरी समझ पाती हूँ।
Such a multi-language environment develops the cognitive abilities of students while also fostering social inclusion and cultural continuity. In Gajapati district, where 90% of people speak Saura language at home, mother tongue learning, bilingual materials, and tribal language storybooks have shown richer participation in schools.
Aninji ulengenji onlenji schoolan apache binji agrangam uria birang koyeteji gyanong galame tuji buddhing galame tuji gamle kana payan ulengenji onja na payan dete sora biran yangne tuji agrangam allen purbatu itente sarkaran anosoi bate itinta bara bogat ateng patol nenjiren.
When learning begins in children's home languages, outcomes improve dramatically. The first language first principle ensures that children begin learning in their own mother tongue before gradually transitioning to Oriya and other national languages. Based on these findings, Bhasha Matters, UNESCO's State of the Education Report 2025 recommends institutionalizing community participation and indigenous knowledge in school practice. Many Indian languages thrive exclusively on oral traditions. Modern translation technologies are critical in keeping these languages alive. Bhashini, part of the National Language Translation Mission, is an AI-driven tool that offers real-time translation for many of India's scheduled languages.
Bhashini, we can say this is complementary to Bhashini Adivani because we are talking about tribal languages. So languages that don't even have a script. So Adivani is funded by Ministry of Tribal Affairs. The ultimate goal of developing Adivani was to reach out to people in their languages. We wanted tribals or indigenous people to learn about the schemes in their own language. So with technology like Adivani, using AI tools, one can develop most of the tools that can be used in having resources in all languages.
Developments in technology must be incorporated to create accessibility and encouragement for multilingual learning and teaching. To promote this, UNESCO recommends to invest in inclusive language technologies and bridge the digital divide. These developments are key to ensure that every language in India's multilingual diaspora has a voice.
Imagine classrooms where students with different home languages can all access lessons in their own language, participating fully and confidently. The report emphasizes bridging the digital divide through infrastructure investments in tribal, rural, and underserved communities. India can create dynamic, inclusive learning environments. Our goal is simple. Every child should begin learning in a language they understand and continue learning with confidence and joy. Thank you. And for those who have just arrived, there are some seats also in this side, so please come and join us here. As Tim mentioned, the author and lead researcher for this year's report is Dr. Minati Panda. former chairperson of the Zakir Hussain Center for Educational Studies and the director of the Multilingual Education Resource Consortium of JNU. I warmly welcome her to the stage to share her journey in our common endeavor. Minati.
Huma Masood for inviting me to author this report. UNESCO is one of the flagship reports for the year 2025. And good morning, everybody. Before I proceed, I would like to acknowledge the contributions of Mr. Rahul Pachauri from IGNCA for research support, Ms. Urvasi from UNESCO for organizing case studies, academic peers for editorial advice. Some of them are sitting here, I can see them. And of course, once again, to Huma, who was interacting simultaneously with me, the media team, and the press. If the colors attract you, thank these teams, not me. You will thank me for black and white part of the report. It's never easy to write anything on language because it's very unique. It's both inside us and outside us. It is inside us as our intellectual, cognitive, and intersubjective capacities, and it is outside us as resources, knowledge, and all the affective registers we encounter on a daily basis. So exclusion of my voice, my tongue, my language excludes me in every possible way exclusion means. It wasn't an easy journey, and I'm an academician, so writing a report for everybody is a challenge. However, I navigated a little more successfully in a collaborative team, a team that really was contributing a lot to this dialogue. Of course, the report built on several UNESCO reports. 2023, 1953, Tim mentioned all of them, and the recent most multilingual matters, that's the Global Guidance 2025. And we looked at the kind of alignments these reports have with education policies, including National Curriculum Framework 2022 and 2023. The basic thrust, all the writers derive some energy from some commitment, some principles. So the basic thrust of this report comes from all these reports, and also one basic principle we laid at the National Consortium for Multilingual Education, JNU. And I quote, "The marginalization of mother tongues reflects a coloniality of language that sustains epistemic injustice and positions certain languages as bearers of knowledge and renders others invisible within institutional regime of schooling." And this is where our energy to work on this report came from, along with all the other reports I mentioned. We have obviously used a mixed method approach. We analyzed the Indian as well as international policies on this document, the practices that are carried out by different state governments, as well as civil societies who contributed very interesting case studies to this document. In fact, the beauty of this document lies in the case studies that speak for the children, the communities, in a language that we could not have probably spoken in this report. We therefore acknowledge the role of civil society, state and national partners in enabling diverse case studies across tribal regions, teacher education, and multilingual resource development. There are 9 chapters in this report. thematically, it moves from mapping the linguistic ecology of this country, the script ecology of the country, and also the kind of language issues we encountered in curriculum, pedagogy, teacher training, and also the digital technology. The way in recent years I see a lot of organizations coming up in volunteering actually, in documenting languages that are actually marginalized and to a large extent minoritized. And these languages are documented, made available to pedagogues for meaningful use in school education. There are the two last chapters of the report are on way forward. They're very brief, chapters. You can quickly go through them. They are on way forward and recommendations. There are 10 recommendations. I'll not read out all the 10 recommendations, but I can tell you what all they refer to. One, of course, it's not new to try out multilingual education in this country. We have been, but obviously many research documents say that only 40% of children receive education in their mother tongue, which is actually an understatement to a large extent. And so the first recommendation is to keep language at the center. The second, third, fourth recommendations are to improve pre-service, in-service teacher education programs, curriculum and material development works, and also, if possible, to give energy to this particular initiative, which is supported, which actually not supported, which is partly initiated by NEP 2020, to, if possible, to start a national mission on mother tongue-based multilingual education in this country. With this, I stop and I thank you, all of you, for inviting me to just speak a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Minati, for your dedication and for collaborating with us to promote inclusive quality education. It's been really a pleasure with you, and thank you so much again. It's time to share our next video, which also includes the next set of recommendations, specifically on strengthening teachers' capacity for linguistic inclusion. If we can have the video.
Teachers must transmit knowledge through contextually relevant mediums. It is crucial to strengthen their capacities for multilingual learning. UNESCO sees the way forward by transforming teaching into the backbone of mother tongue-based multilingual education while harnessing materials to enable linguistic inclusion. Multilingual resources are key for language-responsive education. At Sardar Patel Vidyalaya, New Delhi, students are offered additional classes through a dedicated language program.
Types of animals. So one of the animal is owl, bird. One of the bird is owl. So we talk about and the E is a softer version. Ilai. Ilai is a leaf. The term GTBU stands for Gujarati, Tamil, Bengali, and U is Urdu. This is an option which is given to class 5 towards end of their session. So to this extent, we try to introduce to our children of class 6, 7th or 8th various languages and how they are important in our lives.
Libraries in the school are also stocked with multilingual learning material, encouraging exploration. These facilities introduce curricular forms that are responsive to Indian languages, traditions, and contexts. For nationwide implementation, such resources must also be developed at a large scale.
The bilingual textbooks were there from English to Telugu as well as English to Urdu. And apart from that, here if we observe, a multilingual dictionary is developed from the side of SCRT. All the subject terms were translated into 7 languages: English, Telugu, Urdu, Bengali, Kannada, Marathi. And one word if we speak in English, we ask
the other language students like what do we call this in their mother tongue. So what happens is the other students will come to know about what that particular word is called in different languages. Such kind of multilingualistic atmosphere is created in the classrooms.
Acknowledging the critical role of resources, UNESCO recommends to develop and distribute high-quality multilingual learning materials and assessments across grades. India's linguistic diversity must be made robust through teacher preparation and classroom organization. In Odisha, language textbooks and teacher learning materials are being localized to reflect words, images, and contexts familiar to students.
2013 से मदर टंग का प्रोग्राम शुरू हुआ। सबसे पहले हम लोग उनका डेटा कलेक्शन करते हैं, कहाँ से आए हैं, क्या आए हैं और कौन सी भाषाएं समझते हैं, उनको किस में कंफर्टेबल है। तो हम लोगों को बहुत सारा चीज़ पता चला कि मेजॉरिटी बच्चों को उड़िया नहीं आता था, तो हम लोग उनको पहले लैंग्वेज फैमिली में ऐड करते हैं। ऑस्ट्रो-एशियाटिक लैंग्वेज हो गया, द्रविडियन लैंग्वेज हो गया, इंडो यूरोपियन लैंग्वेज हो गए, और वो भाषा के टीचर के साथ में उनको इंटरेक्ट कराते हैं। तो उसके बाद हम लोगों ने टीचर्स को ट्रेन करना शुरू किया कि किस तरह से हम लोग इनको पढ़ाया जाए। अभी लगभग 100 से 150 टीचर हैं जो आदिवासी हैं और प्राइमरी टीचर्स हैं।
These initiatives allow teachers to move fluently between languages and ensure scalable teacher development for inclusive education. Teachers must also use multimodal methods such as puppetry and storytelling for language learning.
Once we have a grip over mother tongue, any language is easy to learn. Through language, we teach them subjects also, be it a mathematics or a science or a social science. So learning becomes more easy when the language is clear and we are comfortable. So that's how I started and made some simple puppets, stick puppets, that puppet.
Such informal methods can create engaging bilingual atmospheres and are a crucial facet of reimagining language learning pedagogies.
So every year, twice or thrice, teachers from all over India come here for a 15-day course in role of puppetry in education program. So I need to teach them why they are using this puppet, where they'll be using puppets, and how they can do it with minimal material.
Creating a teacher training network to transmit informal learning is critical to strengthen language education in India. Keeping this in mind, UNESCO recommends to reform pre-service and in-service teacher education to embed multilingual pedagogy at all stages. Collective efforts between teachers, technology, and materials can position linguistic diversity not as a barrier but as the foundation of educational quality and cognitive equity.
Thank you. I saw the students of SVP smile. Perhaps you saw some of your classmates there in the video. For this year's report, UNESCO was fortunate to count on the support and collaboration of many partners, and one of our partners in this endeavor is the British Council India. Now I would like to invite Ms. Alison Barrett, Country Director for India of the British Council, to share her reflections on some of the ways English medium schools can also build on students' multilingual abilities and the policies to back them up. Alison, if I can invite you to the stage.
Good morning, namaste, vanakkam. यहाँ आकर मुझे बहुत खुशी हुई क्योंकि भाषा बहुत ज़रूरी है British Council के लिए. So I'm very, very happy to be here. Language, as we've heard, is core to our ability to express our culture, our identity. It's critical for us to get ahead in life, to understand, to learn. It's critical for us to access jobs and different opportunities. And at the British Council, our role is to support collaboration and opportunities for young people. And so culture really sits at the heart of everything we do. But I'm so pleased to be here with all of you. Thank you so much to Tim from UNESCO, from Sadhana from UNICEF, from Joyce, of course, from UNESCO, from all of the partners that we've been working with, Language and Learning Foundation, the Indira Gandhi National Centre for the Arts. It's been a real pleasure to be part of this journey with all of you. This is a really, really important theme, as I've said, a theme that lies at the heart of the British Council's work globally, a theme that matters not just for equitable and inclusive access to learning, but also for confidence, comprehension, and opportunity. India's National Education Policy 2020 is unquestionably multilingual. Built on the global evidence on how children learn, it calls for the local language to be the medium of instruction in early years, and crucially, it does not abandon this approach once English is introduced into the classroom. And certainly, it is not an approach only for Indian language classrooms, as Joyce said. It encourages the continued use of Indian languages for explanation, for concept building, for meaning making, even in English medium schools. This is where translanguaging comes in and why it's so important. Languages shouldn't be kept in watertight compartments, as the report says, but students and critically teachers should be free to think, discuss, and learn using all of the languages they know and all of the languages that they want to know or need to know. Research shows that this flexibility, this ability to draw on the linguistic skills and the repertoire of both students and teachers is what makes learning more richer, it's helped students build their confidence, it's what helps increase understanding of deep and difficult concepts, and it's what helps express local culture and knowledge. The British Council wholeheartedly agrees with the recommendations of this report. We teach English in over 100 countries around the world, and in our teaching centres where we're learning, helping students learn English, we also have a policy that encourages our teachers to use the languages of the students in the classroom. We no longer advocate for an English-only approach in our own teaching centres, especially for progression and for complex ideas and difficult cognitive and conceptual aspects. The report launched today includes case studies from our work in India, which demonstrate if we use translanguaging as a planned approach to pedagogy, not just incidental code switching that we're all so good at on the streets of Delhi and other cities across the country, but that planned, explicit, deliberate approach can really make a difference to learning outcomes. If teachers are able to allow students to process concepts in their own home language and scaffold their expression of in English, we see significant results. For example, some of the case studies in the report indicate this. You can read about Pushpa in Tamil Nadu. She used bilingual materials in grades 6 to 8 in English, and it really helped the students to improve their English paragraph comprehension. Or you can read about Kezia in Telangana, and she used Telugu to help improve reading comprehension in English with her students, using graphic organization and peer learning support mechanisms. So there are lots of really interesting ways that you can see how Indian languages can also support the learning of English. So what does this report mean for policy and practice? Well, I'll leave you to read the report because I think the report speaks for itself. But there are two areas that I want to highlight because they're two areas that are central to the British Council's work. We focus very much on pedagogy and practice in the classroom. So the two areas where we focus is on creating mentoring networks and communities of practice for teachers and teacher educators, for teachers of multilingual pedagogy, for teachers of English who are also learning from teachers of Indian languages in their schools. And those communities of practice really benefit from having the opportunity to build their skills in action research and to really think about the ways they can use translanguaging and multilingual pedagogy to drive their collaboration and drive their experimentation and, in turn, learning outcomes. The second recommendation I'd like to focus on is the importance of setting a multilingual competency standard. This is something I've personally worked on in my time working in Indian schools in India over a decade ago. And having a competency standard, a descriptor that really helps bring to life the behaviors, skills, and practices that you would like a teacher to show or to demonstrate in the classroom is a way of making multilingual pedagogy real and bringing it to life for teachers while they're learning their craft. But crucially, this is also important for materials development and for assessment, as the report says. So the task now for all of us is about focusing on implementation. How can we learn from this incredible report? How can we learn from the excellent work of the author, Dr. Minati Panda, and her editorial board, and for all of the experts that have contributed to the case studies? And how can we ensure that this makes a difference? Because we really owe it to the children across the country to ensure that they can learn with dignity, with respect, and they can really access the opportunities that India will have to offer in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alison, for highlighting pedagogy and practice, as well as competency standards as well. And I know that in the Indian community, assessment is a very, very important subject. At this stage of the program, allow me to share a story from the field of Jita Rani, a young girl studying in a residential school in Bhubaneswar, Odisha, where when she joined the school, she spoke only her home language. Today, she is a confident polyglot, learning and expressing herself in Santali, Kui, Odia, and English, among other languages. Her journey illustrates how multilingual education builds identity, confidence, and deeper learning, a core message of our report. Her story is just one of those who have benefited from inclusive mother tongue and multilingual education policies. I invite you to now please watch the next video as we show you how we can make this reality to others.
Multilingual education can facilitate learning, literacy, and cognitive development from an early stage. For its systematic integration, institutes must coordinate resources and pedagogies grounded in collaboration. UNESCO sees the way forward by strengthening the infrastructure, research, and implementation of language education policies. For India's highly diverse linguistic context, we must establish a national mission for mother tongue-based multilingual education.
India is a multilingual nation, and we speak so many different languages. And cognition is always best developed in a language which you understand. The National Education Policy 2020, for the first time, it has put foundational literacy and numeracy on a policy platform. You will learn in the language you are most comfortable with, the language which is spoken at home or in the local community.
The National Education Policy 2020 emphasizes mother tongue language as the medium of instruction up to at least grade 5 to improve classroom participation.
Teachers have reported that their classroom attendance levels have gone up in case of children because they have started enjoying the classroom as a space of communication because they do not feel that they have to express their understanding only in a monolingual manner. With the NEP 2020 and NCF for School Education 2023, their recommendations about use of mother tongue instruction and regional languages for primary education were in close alignment with small-scale research, reaching out to a number of teachers, training them on multilingual pedagogy.
These findings clearly emphasize the role of research and development, while acknowledging that cultural familiarity and linguistic proximity are crucial to create effective pedagogies. Sourced from this understanding, UNESCO recommends the adoption and operationalization of clear state-level language and education policies grounded in mother tongue-based multilingual education. Institutions must also call for education that is accessible to all. Schools must ensure learning is provided in a child's home language or preferred communicative mode.
There are 70 deaf children in the school at the moment. 25 deaf children also have deaf parents, and their first language is genuinely Indian Sign Language. All the other deaf children are from families with
hearing parents, but sign language is also their mother tongue. All the teachers are deaf. All are very fluent in sign language. All children have 24 hours sign language environment. There's no fear. They directly engage in question answers with the teachers. It's a special environment. And this is linked to quality education and the kind of learning we want in a happy environment.
Specialized teacher preparation in multilingual, visual, tactile, and activity-based strategies allow children with specific disabilities to meaningfully engage in the classroom. These initiatives combine academic learning with linguistic empowerment.
I feel all the neurodivergent children in our school, they somewhere connect with the mother rhythm, mother tone, mother warmth, mother language, and that gives them the bridge, to connect, communicate, and most importantly, trust. Some are need-based verbal, some are verbal, and they enter a new beginning. And at times, it's overwhelming for them. But when they hear a sound which is familiar, they somewhere get an anchor which is comfortable, and they get an identity.
As children enter into higher education, we must ensure that the language divide does not hinder their ability to grasp concepts.
When a child enters into higher educational space, particularly professional courses, suddenly there is a switch from the native language to English very often. So Ministry of Education thought of getting these courses translated into Indian languages. Swayam platform has many of these courses now in Indian languages. IIIT, we were involved in translating about 80 or so courses into 8 Indian languages at that time.
In pursuit of developing portals such as Swayam, the International Institute of Information Technology has developed digital tools to ensure students are regularly up to speed with technical learning.
Basically, the technology can play an assistive role to a teacher and to a user of that language. So it's a kind of a cooperative effort of technology and human to put the content in Indian languages and make it available.
Based on these findings, UNESCO recommends to leverage digital public infrastructure for inclusive multilingual teacher support and learning resources.
We must be multilingual. Everybody should be multilingual. I strongly believe that everyone should know at least 3 to 4 languages. You must know your mother tongue. We must encourage teachers, wherever you are going, you should learn the language of that particular region. Medium of instruction may not be that mother tongue, but if a teacher knows that mother tongue, it will be easier for him or her to communicate with the child.
Ladies and gentlemen, another partner in our journey for the 2025 report is UNICEF India. I would now like to invite Ms. Sadhna Pandey, Chief of Education at UNICEF India and a dear colleague and friend, to share some thoughts of how mother tongue-based education and multilingual education in India's scenario is. Sadhna?
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We've just passed 12 o'clock. On behalf of UNICEF, it's a pleasure to join you today to discuss one of the most powerful levers for equity in education, multilingual learning. And as I was sitting here and watching the various videos, I thought of my own first day of school. And immediately there was a smile that came across my face, because it was a day of joy. I was so excited to go to school. But that joy came from the fact that it was a place of safety. It was a place of connection. It was a place of belonging and inclusion. And at the heart of that was because I was understood by the people around me, by the teacher, by the fellow learners, by the other parents who came to the school. And I could understand what the teacher was saying. So it was really a wonderful moment for me. And it set the trajectory of my life course. That first day of school, to show green shoots. And this is something that we really must celebrate. But language remains a stubborn problem to learning acquisition. Language is the key to thinking, to communicating, to building children's confidence early on. When children are taught in a language they do not understand, they face the double disadvantage of learning a new language while also trying to learn through it. The evidence is clear and abundant. Children learn best when instruction begins in their mother tongue and they gradually transition to other languages. And India's policy framework confirms this. Now we need scalable models. We know what to do. We've got lots of evidence on this. We can search the internet. But we need to move towards how to do it in very difficult circumstances, in multi-grade classrooms, in multi-level classrooms, in schools with one teacher. And this report takes us a step further in answering the how question. UNICEF has partnered with Rajasthan and Jharkhand, I think with Dir, to pilot mother tongue-based multilingual programs based on 150 studies from across the world that shows what works. First, structured pedagogy grounded in the science of reading. You see, we shouldn't be talking about FLN and MLE as two different things. They're one and the same thing. We should be promoting one model around structured pedagogy with MLE integrated in it. Second, instruction in a language that children understand. Third, regular assessment to track improvement and guide support for students who are struggling. Because in an average classroom, many children are struggling. There are many hurdles that they must overcome. And so regular assessment helps us to quickly diagnose and move forward. Fourth, teacher capacity building paired with ongoing support. The support needs to be on-site through a head teacher who is an instructional coach, through a district official who can mentor and support. Fifth, implementation is consistently monitored and adapted through feedback loops. And sixth, this is a journey that we must walk with parents. The parent plays such an important role in the learning journey, especially early on, with storytelling, with classroom activities, with boosting attendance, and with home learning. The results of the work that we are doing in these two states are promising. 98% of teachers in Rajasthan have adopted multilingual methods. Classrooms have become active spaces because the child is understood. There's a vibrancy, there's an energy, there's engagement, and learning has improved. In Rajasthan, for example, attendance has risen from 58% to 66%. Through these programs, we are learning some key lessons for scaling. Using children's language in schools creates psychological safety to explore learning. States must map languages and plan accordingly. Rajasthan's survey revealed 31 languages and diverse classroom-specific needs. We must create print-rich environments. We need big books, we need posters, we need storybooks, we need visual aids that teach academic concepts through local culture. We need to continuously and comprehensively support teachers beyond pedagogy. They need help with classroom management, with formative assessment, how to do a quick quiz, a quick test to tell where the child is at.
and they need multilingual lesson planning. We must build system-wide capacity, starting with the head teacher. The head teacher is not just an administrative leader. The head teacher is an instructional leader, first and foremost, and they must support multilingual education. And we must ensure scalability via sustained resources. It takes money to do this type of work. We must integrate it with broader foundational learning efforts. And we now need explicit codification of late exit models. India is multilingual. It is a tapestry of vivid threads. To keep the fabric both strong and vibrant, these threads must be woven together while honoring each unique color. Successful programs in Rajasthan, Jharkhand, and beyond show that this goal is attainable. We have the evidence, we have the momentum. Now we must scale these approaches to ensure not just language and learning, but dignity, identity, and opportunity for every single precious child in this country. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Sadhna, for your passion. Before we show you our last video and final set of recommendations, I would also like to acknowledge, with thanks, all the schools and the institutions that we visited in Delhi, Odisha, Telangana, and Andhra Pradesh. They have been very helpful in developing these videos with our creative and enthusiastic team at Seeking Tree Films. We now present the final set of recommendations to improve teaching and learning in every tongue in this last video. Please enjoy.
Language is not just a medium, but a bridge between thought, culture, identity, and learning. UNESCO explores the vast possibilities in India's rich language landscape to improve multilingual education across the country.
It's a great pleasure for me to be introducing today UNESCO's 2025 State of the Education Report for India, which is on mother tongue-based multilingual education. So this year we are exploring something deeply fundamental, language, and language which is really at the foundation of all learning. UNESCO's Convention for the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage recognizes at its core that language is the vehicle for the transmission of intangible cultural heritage. When children learn in their mother tongue during the early years, they read and write better, and they participate more confidently in the classroom. So we must ask ourselves, what if every child could start their education in the language they knew and understood best?
Bhasha Matters, UNESCO's State of the Education Report 2025 shows that mother tongue-based multilingual education is steadily moving from the margins to the center of Indian education reform.
This report is framed within the context of the National Education Policy 2020. It emphasizes that multilingual learning is more than adding languages. When teachers utilize children's mother tongue and home languages, comprehension improves, anxiety lessens, and participation in critical thinking rise. Organized in 8 chapters, the report offers 10 recommendations for strengthening mother tongue-based multilingual education in India.
Teachers are crucial to disseminate multilingual learning adapted to specific cultural contexts. It is essential for them to cater to the language needs of students.
When children come into a new school and they leave the comfort of home and walk into a big building, their language being familiar adds to their confidence. Learning is about being able to express the opinion that you have. But if they grow up comforted with the thought that I do have an opinion, I can understand what the other person says, they're very comfortable to discern between what they haven't understood and what they have understood. The comfort level in class is so much more because they can talk to each other without having a limited vocabulary in a second language.
Based on this, UNESCO advocates to strengthen teacher capacities through training to embed multilingual pedagogy at all stages. Linguistic inclusion must promote specialized programs which consider the needs of students with disabilities.
A natural and complete first language acquisition is absolutely essential for any person to develop linguistically and cognitively in an age-appropriate way. And therefore, Indian Sign Language, when deaf children gain access to it when they first enter a school, is absolutely essential to be implemented in a linguistically rich way. The sign languages provide not only the linguistic and cognitive basis, but also a sense of identity for deaf children as members of a linguistic minority community, which is the Indian Sign Language community.
Truly inclusive learning must also look at educational spaces through a gendered lens.
Girls often face additional barriers in accessing and participating in schooling, and these barriers grow when the language of instruction does not reflect the language spoken at home. When girls are unable to fully understand classroom instructions, it affects their confidence, their participation, and ultimately their learning outcomes.
To ensure equitable learning for all, we must deploy women educators that are trained to recognize gender participation patterns. For India's multicultural linguistic landscape, the recruitment of teachers must also consider the regional language of instruction.
मैं जब गांव जाता हूं ना, उसको पूछता हूं, बोलो हमारे एक साल में कितने महीने आते हैं? सब बोलते हैं कि जनवरी, फरवरी, मार्च ही है। मगर जब मैं भाषा में जाता हूं तो तब वो नहीं बोल पाते। 2022 में कोई कैलेंडर बनाया, जो भी देखते हैं तो ये तो अच्छा है, हमारे भाषा आगे ग्रोथ कर रहा है, ऐसे बोलते हैं। जो बच्चे अभी पढ़ाई करते हैं ना, वो सब कुछ भूल जाते हैं, जैसे कि अपनी मदर लैंग्वेज। तो इसीलिए आज भी क्या करते हैं, हम पेरेंट्स लोग क्या करते हैं ना, बच्चों को जब छोटे होंगे तब भी ये ओडिया भाषा सिखाते हैं।
With teachers making efforts to integrate mother tongue learning, systems must match their enthusiasm and foster mechanisms for strong teacher recruitment and deployment. Schooling conducted in a child's home language increases participation and improves learning outcomes. In Gajapati district, books were developed in the local language using contextual and culturally relevant materials.
Gunsring, Pasgenji, Absele Abayale Kambolana Irolai, Bago, Jar, Salona Yamlena, Antate, Irai, Jamla by Kambolana Irolai. Class Aboysrin, Monlai Sikoja, Protham Srenisring, Poncham Srenisikoja. Okay, the Jink Kambolana Irolai, Abanayan, do Aninji, Athani Biranjibati, the Jink Kambolan Irolai.
These findings clearly dictate that indigenous knowledge must find its place in the curriculum through formalized mechanisms of research and integration. We must also use technology to maintain high standards of multilingual education.
मल्टीलिंगुअल एजुकेशन अभी ओडिशा सरकार ने लागू किया ऑलरेडी, तो तब से मैंने देखा अभी बच्चे जाते हैं सारे, तो कहीं ना कहीं टीचर भी उसी लैंग्वेज में बोलते हैं अपने होम लैंग्वेज में, और बच्चे भी तो समझने में और उसको सीखने में, और हिचकिचाहट जो पहले था, एक बैरियर था थोड़ा, वो कम हो गया। एक एआई टूल हम उसी पे रिसर्च कर रहे हैं, जैसे कि ऑटोमेटिक स्पीच रिकॉग्निशन, जहां हम अपना स्पीच और ट्रांसक्रिप्शन, अपना वाराणसी स्क्रिप्ट जो हम यूज करते हैं राइटिंग पर्पज के लिए, हो लैंग्वेज के लिए, तो उसी वाराणसी स्क्रिप्ट में हम लिखते हैं।
Digital infrastructures can provide teachers with the necessary resources to effectively transmit language learning. They can also be made robust with research in artificial intelligence, helping to bridge the digital divide for inclusive multilingual education. To further support the vast array of languages in India, there is a need for consistent research and development.
There are certain languages, mostly tribal and lesser known languages, and indigenous knowledge system, cultural practices, narration, which needs to be documented. Because if you're not document them, it will be possible to make primers, bilingual study material. IGNCA, Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts, has been documenting cultural practices, oral traditions, art, craft of various communities and places in India, which is very important in the process of education. Because again, when you understand their culture, when you understand their folk tales, when you understand their art, which should be included in the education, it only makes a children who's coming from that community comfortable in the class.
To ensure that there is sustained documentation of India's languages, UNESCO acknowledges the vital role of dedicated financing mechanisms by national and state bodies. This coordinated action must facilitate the creation of textbooks and multilingual learning materials to enhance pedagogies.
This time, the policy decision has been that we will bring out all the textbooks in all the 22 languages which are part of Schedule 8. Then there are several languages other than the Schedule 8 languages which are spoken by more than 10,000 people in the country. So we have come out with primers for all these languages, and we have come out with 121 primers.
To achieve the aims of the National Education Policy 2020 and the National Curriculum Frameworks, the report seeks to position linguistic diversity as a foundation of quality education.
We in the Education Department, we are actually looking forward to the report which is brought out by the UNESCO. So you brought out reports in the past on climate change, how culture affects learning, and this time it is on multilingual and mother tongue. So as and when the report is made available to us, to which we are looking forward, we would discuss it and we would try and disseminate the learnings which are coming out of it.
India is investing in foundational learning at an unprecedented scale. Mother tongue-based education is central and essential to achieving these goals. So our hope is that this report will serve as a practical resource for policymakers, for educators and partners in strengthening mother tongue-based education in India. Together, we can help ensure that every child learns and flourishes in a language they truly understand.
Anyone in any context, and they are free of rights. We just ask you to give us brief credit to UNESCO Regional Office for South Asia. As we come closer to unveiling this year's report, I know we've been promoting it the whole morning, I'd like to introduce our last speaker, who is also a member of our editorial board. As is our tradition, the development of the SOER, the State of the Education Report for India, is guided by experts and practitioners on the year's thematic focus. Alongside British Council, UNICEF, India, and other distinguished specialists, our next speaker, Dr. Dear Jingran, founder and director of Language and Learning Foundation, was also a member of our board, and whose deep expertise and compelling case studies were invaluable to develop this report. I would now like to invite Dear to the stage to share his reflection on what innovations are needed in school materials, teacher training, or assessment to strengthen foundational literacy in indigenous languages across Asia. India.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my privilege to be here today for a theme that is close to my heart and work for over 3 decades. And I congratulate UNESCO for bringing out this report, as everyone said, very timely and very important. It is really important, everyone knows that children acquire their first literacy. They should acquire their first literacy in a language that is familiar to them, a language that they are fluently speaking and understanding. It is also important that our focus should be on developing multilingual competencies. The National Curriculum Framework foundational stage emphasizes that by the end of grade 2, children should have basic literacy skills in 2 languages. Of course, they've called them R1 and R2. And then by the end of grade 5, which is the preparatory stage, have strong competencies in these 2 languages. Of course, for us, we also have English, which is introduced from grade 1, so that's an additional complication. Therefore, whatever work we do, and I was asked to speak about teacher training and material development, should be focused on the children's most familiar language, as well as the additional languages that children are required to learn at school. So let me begin by the learning materials in children's most familiar languages, or L1s, we can call them indigenous languages as well. Our work, the work of the Language and Learning Foundation, in the past decade has been with 10 languages which are spoken predominantly in tribal areas of India, developing textbooks, workbooks, poem posters, materials of other kinds. And we've evolved some principles. So I'll just highlight those few principles for developing materials that help children acquire strong literacy skills in the first language, but also then additional languages. The first is that the materials should reflect children's cultural worlds and lived experiences. That's very crucial. And that's important whether it is their first language or another language. This is not important just for their socio-emotional adjustment, for them to be comfortable in the classroom, but also it's pedagogically sound, because once they know the content, then even if there is a problem with a language, it's much easier for them to navigate and negotiate that. So that's the first principle. The second, I would say, is this, that there should be local co-creation involving native speakers who could be teachers, who could be local community, cultural associations. That's been very useful because that also creates a positive environment for acceptance of multilingual education. When they see their language, they see their cultural milieu in the materials, that really helps in accepting a new method where children's languages are taught and learned first. Several states have developed children's materials by translating existing textbooks into these languages. So that's not very appropriate because, as I said, it's important that children's materials should reflect their cultural context, local knowledge systems, and embed a cultural way of making meaning. So that's very important, and therefore multilingual or bilingual does not mean that you put 2 languages together and just translate that. The third principle that I want to talk about here, for several languages, this will require the development of a standardized vocabulary. There are variations in these languages, dialectical variations, even within a small area, and also in many cases, a more standardized orthography of how to write these languages. This is a task that has to be taken up if we definitely want this to be used for school education, especially early education. In the end, I'll say for language, for the materials, supportive activities that could help in development of early language and literacy, like storytelling festivals, organizing school museums, bringing about a much stronger focus on oral language development, concepts of print which children may not have learned at school, that becomes very important when we are working with children from these linguistically diverse backgrounds. I'll take another minute on teacher preparation, which was the other theme that I was to address. For me, the most crucial aspect there is to work with teachers and the system to challenge the deficient view of these communities and children. The fact that these children do not know a language, or even that they are not able to learn, or their parents do not have a value for education. This kind of a deficient view of learning really needs to change to an approach where everyone agrees that all children can learn and must learn and master foundational learning, and it is the school's responsibility to ensure this. Children are emerging bilinguals. They know a language very well. They come to school fluently speaking a language or more than one language. May not be the language used at school, may not be the language of the textbook, but recognizing that is very important. And that language and culture is not inferior. It is not unworthy of being brought into the classroom. That's very important. So this monolingual bias needs to be addressed, and to help create, as other speakers in the video said, a multilingual environment in the classroom. So typically, teacher training, teacher professional development has not focused on these issues. But this is absolutely central to further talking about techniques and strategies of how do you bring multilingual education for foundational learning and structured pedagogy, as Sadhna said. But this fact that creating a strong multilingual environment, and Alison talked about translanguaging, that is the strongest strategy where children and teachers feel free to use whatever linguistic resources they have to express themselves in the best manner, and also strong comprehension and encourage use of languages without boundaries. So, but this really requires change in attitudes and beliefs. Why I dwelt on this for a minute is because teacher training is often today about a package that is there, and teachers are trained then on implementing the package. There is the techniques are defined, the methods are defined, what materials to use, but this one is really about how do you change attitudes and beliefs to ensure that a multilingual environment is respected and is nurtured in the classroom. And therefore, I think teacher professional development must focus on pedagogies of multilingual classrooms. That's really crucial. And they cannot just be about transmitting information about a package that has been developed, but developing an understanding of how classrooms can be multilingual, and children's languages and cultures should find a strong place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear, and for bringing that and highlighting multilingual education. So now really is time for me to now hand back the floor to my director, Tim Curtis.
Thank you, Joyce, and thank you, everyone. I think now is the big moment we've all come for. Time to actually launch the report, the State of Education Report for India 2025 on Mother Tongue and Multilingual Education, Bhasha Matters. I think the team will be distributing bags, and in that bag you will have a copy of the report. Does everyone have copies of have we got enough reports to go around to everyone? Because I think we need to collectively launch this report. I'm just here as a kind of encourager, but we'd like to take a photo with everybody holding the report. So I'll give a moment until everybody can get a copy, and then we all collectively launch the report, and we'll have a great photo. I'll ask you all at one stage to hold up the report, and so that we can see it and get a photo from the stage of the team. I think there's a photographer somewhere ready for that. I will need one too, but let's make sure everybody else gets one first. Again, thank you to everyone, all the team who've worked so much, all of you who've come here today. It's been fantastic. Although the day is not over the launch, but I'll explain that a bit later. Here it is. Okay, does everybody have the report? We still need a bit of time for the report. What about over there? Can they get a report as well, please? All that lovely singing, I think they deserve a report, yeah. This is somebody's phone on the floor here. Okay, I think we have reports, so if everybody can pull out the report and then hold up the report like that, we'll get a fantastic picture that we'll be able to share with everybody. So we now declare launched the State of Education Report for India 2025, Bhasha Matters. Yay. Thank you, everyone. So, oh, now we're asked, everybody has to stand, so I'm sorry, there's...
Should have a drone probably.
Okay, thank you. So before you go, I remind you, first of all, you're invited to a lunch outside, but that at 2 o'clock there'll be a panel discussion. So those of you, please, who wish to explore a little bit more deeply these issues, you're welcome to come back at 2 o'clock for the panel discussion. Thank you. You want to have a pic? But that's the panel, you're at the panel, right?
Can we have all the members?
Yes, okay, okay.
Together? You're on the stage,
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
it's
The
memory
speakers,
moment.
please.
Yeah, please.
And editorial Ben.
Please. Thank you, Tim. Yeah. I'm good. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. It started with you. It started with you.
You keep it here and you
Now
I'll
is
be
the
dying.
film after this. Huh? Acha, pakdi?
May I please request everyone to proceed towards lunch? Please let's have the honor of sharing lunch together. Thank you.
right now. And I'd like to invite the panelists. So the first is Dr. Miniti Panda, who's the author of this document. And she doesn't need more details and more references. So Dr. Miniti Panda, please come on the stage. I request you. We also have with us Professor Emeritus of Psychology and former chairperson of the Zakir Hussain Center for Educational Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, Dr. Ajit K. Mohanty. And Dr. Mohanty is also, we have the privilege that he was also part of the editorial board. So Dr. Mohanty, please, we want to listen more to you, so kindly be seated. Then we have a technical partner and representative of UNICEF over here with us, Sunisha Ahuja. And I request Sunisha to come on the dais. And last but not the least, we also have our team from Orissa and from KIIT Orissa. And I take this opportunity to invite Madam Monalisa Bal to kindly come up on the stage. And they are also our technical partners. You must have seen some of the videos in which the school was represented. So, Dr. Monalisa Bal. So, we will have around 5 minutes for each of our panels members, and there are questions for each of the panelists. I'll start first with the editorial board member and also Professor Mohanty. And the question for him is, given the evidence on the limitations of early exit mother tongue-based multilingual education, how can states design longer, developmentally coherent, multilingual trajectories that balance community language maintenance, academic progression, and parental aspirations for dominant languages at primary, middle, and secondary stages? The second part of this very long question is, how do rural and tribal area schools deal with this hegemonic presence of English and regional languages in school? Should states have state-specific language in education policies, or how we should go about? Since you have a background in NEP and or the policy perspective you have, kindly share some of your viewpoints. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here and for inviting us. All over the world, research as well as practice in education of the minoritized minority groups show quite a few things. One, submersion education, where children are put into the dominant medium of instruction regardless of their language of thinking, works the worst. It not only does not promote learning of classroom concepts, it actually is responsible for loss of linguistic diversity all over the world. The second system, which has been often practiced in India as well as elsewhere, is a soft kind of approach where, knowing that children do not understand the language of the classroom, they are given some support in their own language, in their mother tongue, as a transition or as a transfer to the main language. This kind of program has also been practiced in India in the 1980s by the Central Institute of Indian Languages, where they had a program called bilingual transfer model, where they are given little bit of input in the first year of instruction, in their mother tongue, and then the second year onwards, it's all the dominant language. That also has shown that it does not promote high level of educational achievement. It does not promote learning of the mother tongue. It does not really promote sustenance of the mother tongue for the child. The third, which is most common all over the world, not just in India, all over the world, is what is called an early exit model. Early exit model is one in which, knowing, okay, children do not understand the language, they are given instruction in their language of thinking for 2 to 3 years, and then quickly that language goes out and the dominant language takes over. That also has been shown to be responsible for loss of languages, and more importantly, a subtractive learning, where the more the children learn in the second language, the less they retain of their mother tongue competence. Now, what is being advocated all over the world through research, including our own in India, is that you provide education at least for 5 to 6 years in the dominant, in the non-dominant or in the mother tongue language of the child before you promote education in the dominant language. Okay. Other dominant language can remain as a second language of literacy, language of exposure, language of early conversational development, but the mother tongue development is the primary goal in the early years, 6 to 8 years. Mother tongue continues, becomes a medium of instruction for the child, and then second language. That has been found to be most effective. Now, what is really keeping, therefore, the early exit model doesn't work. It's very clear on that, you know. Now, why is it not being implemented? That's not being implemented because the communities as well as the popular perception of the dominance of languages in any society is so much that English is perhaps the most important language as far as India is concerned. People, communities perceive that to be the most important language, and therefore quickly they go over to English, they feel comfortable. And our politicians, unfortunately, are responding to that situation in trying to promote more English medium, early English medium schools and so on. So English is actually, except in Odisha, English is now in grade 1 in most of the schools all over the country. So that's actually, we should understand that. You know, the reason that is happening is because the popular perception takes over the educational policy or the pragmatics of educational policy. So because our policymakers, our politicians are responding to that popular emphasis on English. Now what is needed is good education of the public to impose or to make them realize that education in the mother tongue is not really taking away the child from education in the dominant language. It is actually taking them closer. You know, that kind of a demonstration, wherever a community is able to realize that by learning their own language, the children are also doing well in the dominant language as well as in English, the popular perception will change. Our Minati and I, we engaged in multilingual plus experiment project in Odisha, in Saura and Kui languages for 7 years. We showed, initially there was public resistance. Community was very apathetic. They didn't know why in mother tongue, you know, the dominant language is there and all that. No, once they realized, once they found that the child is able to take the learning back from the classroom to the home, and once the parents are able to share what is happening in the classroom, and once the parents are realize that the children are not only learning in their mother tongue, they are also in the process learning Odia and also English at a later stage in time, then they are all for it. Therefore, we need, first thing we need, in order to have a policy in the state, we need to have a public education first. Parents must be must be taught or must be somehow communicated that it is necessary for their children to learn in their own language and also bring in the language right perspective to it. That okay, every community has a right to learn and to develop their own language. Now, policy, that is the last part of your question. The policy, Odisha is now the only state in the country which had a policy as early as 2014. 2014 July, Odisha published this policy in the government gazette. It's a legal document now. Minati was there, we developed that policy for Odisha, but unfortunately, that policy which was primarily for tribal children, tribal children, suggesting that all tribal children must have education in their mother tongue as the main language of instruction until the end of the primary grades, which is grade 5 at that point in time, and then subsequently state dominant language or other languages can take over. Now that policy is clear. I have a chapter in the last handbook of linguistic human rights on Odisha. I call it a partial success story. That is because Odisha has developed that policy, accepted that policy, but unfortunately again the public demand for an English medium education takes over, and Odisha has several provisions which also promote education of the tribal children in English medium schools. That is one problem. The second problem with the policy is that it is pre-2020. So now that the new education policy has come up and now that the Odisha policy has been reinforced by the NEP 2020, I think the policy should now again be looked back, and it should become a policy for everybody, not just for tribal children. Because MLE is not just a tribal education process. MLE is a broader system which should be applicable to all children. Therefore, what I suggest is all other states under the banner of the new education policy and also the leadership of the education department of the government of India should now be encouraged to develop their own policy of language in education. And once that policy is developed, the importance of the language of thinking, it's not just mother tongue. I think I would like to reconceptualize mother tongue as a language of thinking. Why it's not just mother tongue, it's the way in which the child thinks. And therefore it makes sense to educate a child initially in the language in which he actually thinks. Therefore, that policy development, emphasizing the language of thinking of the child and emphasizing its relationship with development of multilingual skills, because multilingualism is now the new emphasis in the new education policy. Therefore, that kind of policy should be developed by all states. Because a national policy will not do, because education is a joint subject in Indian Constitution. Both state and federal government have ownership of that. Therefore, all states should now look up the new education policy, think what is best for their children, and develop a policy of their own, taking the local conditions into account. Thank you.
So my next question is for Sunisha. And as you must have heard in the morning that Foundational Language and Learning Foundation and UNICEF, they have been working in the area of FLN. So my question to you, Sunisha, is related to that how can national FLN initiatives under NEP 2020 and Nipun Bharat be translated into state-level practices that systematically integrate mother tongue-based multilingual education across curriculum, teacher preparations, assessment, and community engagement, so that policy Intent leads to demonstrable improvement in FLN.
Thank you, Huma, and congratulations to UNESCO for bringing out this report, which I'm sure is going to stir a lot of conversations. And I'm really looking forward to those conversations, not only in New Delhi, but in every state of India, taking forward the message that Professor Mohanty just gave, that every state needs its own language policy. So just to kind of the point that you asked, Huma, I think the implementation of the intent of the policy and the National Mission on Foundational Learning for us really started with actually doing a language mapping across schools, which we first did in Chhattisgarh. And one of the learnings that emerged out of that, and it was a very basic language mapping done through school teachers of children in their classes in grade 1. What languages do children bring to school when they join school? And to our surprise, the penny dropped when we realized that it is not, as Professor Mohanty said, it's not children who are from tribal communities who face a language disadvantage. Children face a language disadvantage. They speak, they understand, and they think, as Sir said, in a language that is not the language of instruction in the classroom. And therefore, when we did this evidence generation and we shared it back with the state governments and we had consultations with district functionaries of Samagra Shiksha, did it all kind of start to fall in place that yes, we have a problem and we need to address this problem. And perhaps this is one of the reasons because of which children are not learning. So in order to get that intent and that national mission to kind of be visible inside a classroom, I think one is that we have to have everybody within that ecosystem come to a common agreement on what is that change we want to see in the classroom and how does each one of us contribute to that change. So even if it is somebody who's sitting at SCRT or someone who's in a district office, each one of them has a role to play in changing that classroom. It's not the teacher's responsibility alone. Everybody has to walk that path. Everybody has to understand why we want to use children's familiar languages inside the classroom. And from the experience that we have in Jharkhand, where we are working with about 1,000 schools, and in Rajasthan, where we are working with about 100 schools, the program is completely led by the government. So SCRT in Rajasthan, Samagra Shiksha in Jharkhand, they are leading this process. They are kind of taking the lead in terms of material development, training modules that are being developed for teachers. And as what Dheer said in the morning, it's important that local people are part of that process of creating all of this material. One of the really exciting things that has happened in Jharkhand for us is that while we were developing reading material for children, the big books and the poem posters, we had girls from the KGBV schools come and work with us in developing those materials, thus making sure that the local context, the local culture was as much there in this material. And in all of this, I think the other element is of taking parents along. I completely, agree what Professor Mohanty said, that until parents are on board and parents understand why we are doing this and how this is actually going to be very helpful for children, we won't be able to, do it successfully. And there'll always be that conflict between what the school is delivering and what parents are, really expecting the school to deliver. But I do want to say that, when you have these conversations with parents, you realize that parents also have their own aspirations. And I'd like to share here, I was in Dungarpur and talking to a mother's group there, and we were discussing that The school is now teaching children in the language that you speak at home. So what do you think about it? And the mothers were saying that, now we are understanding what the school is doing. I relate to a lot of the things that the child comes back and tells me, आज school में क्या हुआ, आज class में हमने क्या पढ़ा. And then the question was, so what are you expecting this will do to your child? And this one mother, she stood up, and this, her testimonial just keeps coming back to me every time I talk about multilingual education. And she said to me, कि जब मेरा बच्चा इस गाँव में बातचीत करे तो वो हमारी भाषा में बात करे, जब वो जयपुर जाए तो वो जयपुर की भाषा में बात करे, और जब वो दिल्ली आए आपसे बात करे आपकी भाषा में आपसे बात करे. And I was like, she's talking about multilingual education. She's talking about her child being multilingual. And she's really kind of framed it so beautifully, And I also just link this to the point that Sir said, that English, we overplay English, true, because parents also see that there is a economic purpose of this language. And therefore, why should my child get left behind? But I think there is enough space for having those conversations with parents to take them along with us as part of this journey. And last but not the least, what it does to the children, one has seen that going to these classrooms where the teachers are now adopting practices which are keeping children's languages at the center of all the learning process, the way it changes the whole child, the body language changes, the children's participation changes, the children have agency and they are kind of leading that learning process for themselves. So I think the implementation of NEP or Nipun Bharat really lies in having an ecosystem-based approach where everybody has signed up to a common vision and see that they all contribute to that shift or the change that's going to happen in the classroom.
So very rightly said, Sunisha. There was also one very short incident or a story which Sunisha shared with me, and she mentioned that there was this influencer in some country who was talking, who was doing a show, and in that show he was talking to some girl, and they were talking about what do you do every day or something like that. And so she said that on Wednesday I did something. So he corrected that girl and said it's not Wednesday, it is to be pronounced like Wednesday. So she said, but am I not communicating? Did you not understand? So what is it, the message in this small short incident is, or story is, that language is for communication. And that is what children of all the countries are actually wanting to do. Globally, when they come to the school for the first time, they want to communicate to their classmates, to their teachers, to their surrounding, and they want to be comfortable in that particular ecosystem wherever they are. Now, when we are talking about participation, equity, inclusivity, there is also some we generally don't think about. And what UNESCO always says, leave no one behind. When we are saying Bhasha matters, it is not just that it matters. We are also talking about the matters related to Bhasha. And that's the reason we kept our title as Bhasha Matters. So one of the children or one of the cohort or group which is generally left behind are children with disabilities. And that is why we ensured that we also include them in our report. And the institution which has been doing remarkable work like Happy Hands and KIIT are the ones who have taken that role to ensure that these children are also included. But definitely ask me, it is the toughest call. What our friend Dr. Mona Lisa Bal is doing there is something very unique. I'll definitely request her to give us one small story how it began, and also to tell us that how in this particular format or design what you're doing, how are you helping in the cognitive, linguistic aspects, also looking at the socio-economic development of children, and also this whole group of deaf, blind, and neurodivergent learners. So it's a huge group you're catering to, and each one comes with its own challenge. I and Urvashi had the privilege to see it in person, and really it was something which is like an eye-opener. And therefore, please share with us your design, your resources, and all that what you do with the students at KIIT. Over to you,
Thank
ma'am.
you, Homa. Dignitaries on the dais. Namaskar. Audience, thank you. And UNESCO, thank you. I'm from KIIT International School, and we run this little, I would say, department which has 300 neurodivergent children. And we have started working we are working for last 10 years. And we are actually struggling with language. Language is an emotion, it's an identity, it's an expression, we make sense out of language. But when children come to us, neurodivergent children, they speak in a language which our therapists do not understand, our special educators do not understand, our mainstream teachers do not understand, and our mainstream students, they are far at the back to understand. So what is this language that we need to understand to mainstream them, to bring them into a space where equity is defined, inclusion is there, and quality is there? That language is yet to be researched and yet to be defined, I would say. They come from different backgrounds. Parents speak in English. As Sir said, dominant language. Sunisha, you also spoke about dominant language to be English. They don't speak in mother tongue, Odia. No one speaks in the mother tongue, and we keep on banging our head against the wall. Why our languages are disappearing, our identity is disappearing. None of our parents speak in their mother tongue at home. When I ask a child who comes to school, UKG child, tell me what is the Odia for Thursday? I don't know. Must be something. How do I know? So they go to their second language class to know what is the translation for anything which is in English to be translated in Odia. They don't speak it at home. And then their audiovisual most, their cartoons, everything is in English. So who do we actually point the finger at? We are talking about tribals getting into mother tongue language. Yes, they are not getting it. Multilingualism coming somewhere in the later on. But what about the children, those who are elite, those who are going to elite schools? And then we have these neurodivergent children, those who are actually nowhere when their parents are talking in a language at home. When they come and speak when the special educator is talking out of that, she has to finish the curriculum, she has to finish the content, she has to take them to the therapy, she is in a different mode. So they are all pushing, rushing, probing, and who's actually in the middle suffering? Children. And the policies are there. But how much are we following? How much are the teachers following? But for all of that, we have started working again, as we all discussed, we are bringing parents to the mainstream. We are bringing parents to the school. We are discussing with them, this is a language we have to follow. This is the IEP we have to follow, Independent Education Planner. This is a cognitive language we have to follow. This is the therapies we have to follow. Sensory rooms should look like this. Sensory content should look like this, though we do not have a curriculum in place yet. When it comes to mainstreaming children from special education needs to mainstream, I mean through the breach classes, through include classes, through care classes, we do not have the curriculum yet. And what language that curriculum is going to reflect, I am yet to understand that. So having said that, we are figuring out how to push these children towards a society which believes in inclusion, believes in equity, believes in quality, and a curriculum which all of us are working on, like how to make mother tongue, a base where they find their emotion, find their expression, find a language which they can speak about. And where actually through stories, through making the community feel proud of the language, of our language. That can only happen if we have cultural storytelling, cultural parents coming and taking part in the school events or any other language events, language celebrations, pride building around the language. We can actually bring about a lot of changes, Suma. Thank you.
So we were talking about policies at state level. We also mentioned about how in Orissa, both Dr. Mohanty and also Dr. Panda, they have worked in Orissa and ensured that it has a policy and policy which is now kind of being implemented, recognized, and it's kind of a legal document. Sunisha mentioned that this report is going to take us forward, and it's going to echo, hopefully. And I would say that to my surprise, I got an email yesterday from Jharkhand, and I was surprised at how do they know about this report. And they said, we just got to know that there's this report of UNESCO coming out, and we are going to organize something in January. And therefore, we want if UNESCO could come as a partner, and we would like to deliberate on the state policy on mother tongue and multilingualism. So let us be very optimistic and hopeful that something will happen from here onwards. The purpose is, of course, that something should happen. Now, the author is, of course, Dr. Miniti Panda. And she has delved on many, many aspects already. So I would not call it a question to her because, she's the one who is a curator of this document. So I would rather ask her that the kind of 10 recommendations we have, what is your take on these 10? You do not need to go too deep into it, but at least delve on it and tell us that what kind of restructuring, what kind of pedagogy, assessments, or things like that can take place, because the environment is definitely positive. So I think we should. And also our secretary, Mr. Kumar, was also very positive, I felt, who said that, they're looking forward to receiving the report and also taking it forward. So over to you, what you would like to say on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Huma. Two things I see happening already. One, of course, destigmatizing the use of languages which are already minoritized or minority languages, which were not used in classrooms earlier, including multilingual practices, the way we code switch or trans-language on our daily basis, daily life, that has been destigmatized to a large extent. If not, that is one thing that has to go on for some years. And that's also linked to our attitude towards place of language in education, like whether to use any language as instruction and what is its relationship with the desired languages, the languages that we want to learn, say English or Hindi or Odia. The second thing that is already happening is, because we are at very early stage, class 1, class 2, we are talking about foundational literacy, there seems to be a kind of shared understanding and confidence in implementing that, because the pedagogic principles are simple relatively. I'll not say they're simple, but at least people see that as doable. The challenge will come when we'll take MLE to higher classes. That is when it will require a very different understanding of language and its relationship to mind and knowledge, which we have been talking about very rhetorically, very forcefully, but very rhetorically. Those rhetorics need to be translated into the language of pedagogy. How do we do that? That's the question we should be asking at the same time. First one, I'm not saying stop. No, this has to go on. You know, the kind of narrative Sunisa mentioned, Professor Mohanty and I, we have been hearing it since 2005. I've been hearing it since 1996 in Odisha. Like, as when you go and talk to parents, children in their language, and they see their languages appearing in the classroom, a very different kind of consciousness rise in them, different kind of belonging come across, The school starts looking a very different kind of sight. So that has to go on. But the difficult question we need to ask, if we really are serious about some substantive approach in multilingual education, then what is the kind of pedagogic language and understanding we need for higher classes? So to do that, what we had, and I'll just bring in some of our examples very briefly, because we don't have much time. We have experimented with many of these because we were asking very difficult questions to ourselves way back in 2007, 8, 9. Not that we're not asking them, but those were our projects. We had taken those up. So one simple thing, when we talk to each other, employing 2-3 languages, or I'm speaking in one language and he's struggling to understand me, and as well as trying to communicate in his language something to me, a lot of things are happening. A pedagogue needs to understand. As we trans-language or code switch, we constantly trans-knowledge. More knowledge systems are coming into play. The simple concepts, the academic, so-called esoteric academic concepts start getting legs from the experiences of children, again rooted through their languages, and then a kind of understanding, abstract understanding emerges from there. And that abstract understanding, if you're a psychologist or an educationist, you will understand that it comes from the struggle, not from giving a concept in plain, simple, understandable language to somebody. It doesn't come. Concepts fall in place only through struggle. So what is the nature of that struggle we want in the classroom today when we bring children's languages? It's not a language, children's languages at the center of our pedagogy. So that's one thing we need to dialogue. Second, like I'm a Vygotsky, I always ask that, okay, I know what water is. Why should I be taught about water in the classroom? So obviously classroom is telling something very different about water to me than my home has told me. So how my understanding of water that I've got from home become a scientific concept of water that school wants to give me? What is that journey within a multilingual framework? So when we say multilingual framework, please, it's not only about languages. It's about concepts, it's about ideas, it's about participation, it's about collaborative struggle. I'll scaffold somebody's learning and somebody will rise. None of that works. I have to struggle and rise. And so the job of a teacher is to create the opportunities for struggling with concepts, with knowledge, with language, with ideas, everything. So multilingual education pedagogy is a radical pedagogy. It is all about struggle, tension, dialectics, and it is all about shaking each other, but then traveling together. When we travel with concept, we travel together. Pedagogy has to be about that. I think the language of multilingual education pedagogy has to come out of this very early exit, thoda sa scaffold kar do, thoda sa madad kar do, to a real pedagogy. This is my area, I can go on and on. Just one last thing I will say, because the pre-service and in-service teacher training programs are the sites where a major change has to take place. And if you want any change, then we have to create a tension in that field. If they think we have 2 modules on language and multilingual education, then we have done our job. No. It's a paradigm shift. It requires restructuring at every level. Fine. So what I was thinking, that's simple. Suppose you ask a simple question, that when a concept falls in place, how does it fall in place? It takes 20 other concepts with it to fall in place. as I'm working for and with a concept with, say, 20 children or 5 children, I use their languages, their experiences, everything that they bring in. I use the textbook, I use everything that even I have, and generate a dialogue. And I'm trying to say, take an example, gravity. The concept of gravity to fall in place. Gravity, by the time it falls in place, it takes 20 other concepts with it to stand on. So as I move with one concept, I actually develop several other concepts. So please, if pedagogy is about developing one single concept well in the classroom, it is about a radical, child-centric, language-inclusive pedagogy. So I'll stop here. I just wanted to say one thing, that the language in which we have been talking about is becoming very uncreative, because all these terms that we're using are overused. They lose the potential to create new imagination in us. We need a new language. We need a new language for curriculum, for textbooks, for pedagogy. Let's go a step further. All of us are together to do that, to bring that language in and create a kind of dialogue which takes us in the right direction. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I think we can open some question and answer session we can have. We'll can take some questions, and you are free to ask something you think it's relevant. Yes, ma'am? Yeah.
You need a microphone there.
I think now you...
Mobile.
If I may be permitted to ask 3 questions. The first question is pre-NEP 2020, and that question relates to the 3-language formula. Because I have read a lot of writings of Professor Miniti Panda on the 3-language formula, where she has explained very convincingly and in very simple language that the basis of the 3-language formula is actually unscientific, because even though children have the natural ability and the inherent tendency to learn many, many languages, but when the same languages are presented to them as school subjects in a school context, the multiple languages and the many languages turn into a cognitive burden rather than the kind of facility with multilingualism which they are in their natural context. Because in schools, there's no natural context to practice those languages. So my question is that, ma'am, why do you think that the 3-language formula is still followed with so much of gusto all across schools? And I'm very closely associated with many schools, and all the time the teachers and the school heads find it very perplexing when I say that there is no need to load students with Spanish, German, Punjabi, Urdu, and so on, as if it's a great epistemic virtue to do too many languages. And then they say, oh ma'am, you're from education, you must be knowing that doing more languages means that children develop cognitive capacities. And so ma'am has explained this very well in her writing. My first question is that, why has policy never responded to this research by language educators that putting languages in the school curriculum is very different from learning languages in their natural context? Ma'am, my second question to you is, I'm sorry I'm taking the liberty of asking so many questions, because some of my students are sitting here and they are doing their BLEd 4th year research projects on the recent CBSE circular to schools that education till, maybe Shweta, you can tell about what's in that circular. So it's a circular which is basically trying to promote mother tongue based language. But then that's not what is happening in the schools, because she's collecting her data for this project and she's finding that the teachers are still teaching in the medium of instruction which is different from the mother tongue. So, I mean, what happens when circulars like this are issued? Who follows them? Because her data collection is actually happening in a government school. It's not even happening in a private school. So when the state bodies, important state bodies like CBSE, they come up with a circular which is in the spirit of what Professor Mohanty and Miniti ma'am have talked about. But then that's not what the reality is, and it's only a circular issued by CBSE which stays in government papers, and it doesn't mean anything in terms of actual classroom practice. If you could give a moment, maybe Shweta could share some of her data which she has gathered in this regard. Ma'am, my third question is because Miniti ma'am has talked about pre-service teacher education, and my name is Jyoti Raina, and I have a background in pre-service education. I teach in a teacher education program. Ma'am, even if I believe in mother tongue based multilingual education, there are no resources. As a matter of fact, all these years, I mean past 25 years I've been teaching in the BLEd program. Almost every year there were at least 2 or 3 Hindi medium students. And the quality of resources that are made available to them are very, very poor. First of all, the main academic resource, they have the teacher. My own competence in Hindi language or in any other language is very poor. And I do this little exercise every year. I try to explore linguistic diversity in my classroom. And I'm really not able to either see it, or even if it is there, it is not very express. And actually exploring it also doesn't mean anything because I have no resources to offer to the students. And the teaching tends to become completely monopolized by the English language because that's the language in which resources exist. So ma'am, how does one carry this forward? Because you spoke about the value of pre-service education, and if you could permit just 1 or 2 more minutes, maybe Shweta could share some of the data that she finds on the implementation of the CBSE circular on language and what she found in schools. You can maybe speak a little about the circular also. Ma'am, the circular uses the terminology of linguistics.
Good afternoon, ma'am and sir. Basically, the CBSE circular was recently issued by the CBSE authority on 30th May. In that circular, they are guiding the teachers on how to implement language at the foundational and at the preparatory stages, and they are just telling that at the foundational stage, how will you introduce R1, which is their mother tongue. Then at the secondary level, which is class 3rd to 5th, how will you introduce the second language, which is R2, and that is English. But when it comes to multilingual language learning at the school level and how teacher will use multilingual languages in the class. So I have seen that the books, recently my school have an inspection by the DD, and everyone very much, most of the teachers are very much cautious about how the DD will be seeing either, maybe the students are able to read or write or not. So what they did is, when the DD was coming, there was hybrid mode education in the school because of the pollution. So what they did is they just asked the student who are well versed in reading and writing, and they just called those students for this inspection. And during the inspection, I have seen what DD ma'am is doing is that she just told the student just open the books and read the chapter. And she was just looking how well versed they are. So my question is, I have a resource room corner in the school where they read a lot of books from recently Room to Read books from Pratham publication, Eklavya publication. So they are very versed, they are very interesting in reading those books instead of standard Hindi books. So basically, if you are talking about mother tongue and also, you should give that much environment to your students or the children you are targeting. But you are focusing, if you are focusing on mother tongue, then why your books and your curriculum is basically focused on standard English and standard Hindi? So my question,
Okay, I'll be very quick. I don't remember exactly the language in which I had written, but this my relation with three-language formula is very problematic, because not that it's a wrong formula, no, just that how we decode it, and I completely agree with you that languages should not be imposed on children. But multilingualism also needs a very different kind of understanding, which is very rooted to this country. I don't know what else. I mean, cognitive burden, when the languages are just brought in as subjects, it's a burden. But if there is a fluidity that is established between languages, language and subject, there is a context to it, and also it is founded on what children like to do as well, students like to do, then it will not be a cognitive burden. Cognitive burden is because of the artificial separation we maintain between languages, disciplines, and subjects which are discipline based. So when I talk about cognitive burden, I link it to non-comprehension comprehension and also routinely implementing something. Pre-service, yes. Also in NCF 2022 and NCF 2023, if you look at the language in which both are written, I haven't spoken to the writers about it, but in, say, in 2022, which is for foundational literacy, they're using the terms L1, L2, L3. So L1 is basically first language. It can be anything, and it can be your mother tongue also. Mostly it is mother tongue, but it can be any other language. So it counts languages in this format, which is very different from using the term R1, R2, and R3 as nomenclatures. They talk about regional language 1, regional language 2, regional language 3. These are very different languages or categories. And it's just like one is for first 5 years, and class 3 school and NCF school education will apply from class 3 onwards. So I really do not know, NCERT has to answer this. But this confusion, I understand why this is done. And your question is the answer for it. I'll not get into that, because shifting from L1 to R1 probably is that. The reason for it.
Okay. Hello. Yeah, I think the three language formula, like the rest of the new education policy, it's only suggestive. It's not a rigid set of formulas, because if you go by the policy, a tribal child in Gujarat would learn mother tongue, whatever tribal language it is, Gujarati, Hindi, and English. Therefore, it cannot be three languages. Three languages is only a broad suggestive process that we have to understand. We also have to understand that unfortunately, languages are divided in a hierarchy. The model has been used, I have used this model double divide, which is English at the apex of that hierarchy with a gap between English and the Hindi and all other state or scheduled languages. And then the second divide is between these languages and tribal languages, tribal, indigenous, minority languages. Now, what is this double divide doing is assuming that children are taught in their mother tongue because they will quickly move into the higher level. That is why I do not subscribe to the bridge model, because it's not a bridge. Its bridge would assume a two-way traffic, going from mother tongue to the other dominant languages and back to the mother tongue. That doesn't happen. What actually happens is what I have said is a ladder model. You use a ladder to go from your mother tongue to the higher level language, and once you reach there, you don't need that. Throw the ladder out and then go to the last one. So that is what is happening, unfortunately. So we need to, parents, teachers, the government, the policymakers need to understand that we need to establish the fact that all languages are equally placed. Unfortunately, what hangs high on the mind of the parents, is that the child already knows this language, let the child go to the second language. It's counterintuitive in a way. To talk about mother tongue based multilingual education is in some ways counterintuitive, because if the child has to learn English because that is most important, why does the child move away from English to mother tongue? It's it's counterintuitive, and that is what actually happens in the minds of the parents as well as policymakers. They think, let us quickly move on. And unfortunately, many of the international players, national players, and some states, the education system is responding to that. What they are doing is they are allowing a soft process of assimilation by somehow bringing in some other tongue in the early years and what they call the integrating mother tongue into the dominant language instruction and then quickly move on from there. Many of the international players, because the governments in all societies want children to learn the dominant language. In most parts of the world, it is English. Therefore, the players, both national and international players, are doing this. The people who are implementing or responsible for implementing the policy are bringing in a soft transitional model. You bring in little bit of mother tongue, like Madam said, the teacher would obviously translanguage. Teacher will use some knowledge of the local language in order to communicate to the child. So this is precisely what many of these players are doing. They somehow think, okay, mother tongue is necessary because the child doesn't understand or any other language. Therefore, bring in some mother tongue, and once the child begins to understand, teach her in the dominant language. And that is the most unfortunate part about implementing multilingual education in this country. Not just in this country, all over the world. So we need to realize that by strengthening the mother tongue, you are not just strengthening education, you are building the identity on the identity of the child, you are providing a more culture sensitive instruction, and you are also strengthening the mind, the processing system. Because once the child becomes multilingual, the power of processing is much higher. The neurolinguistic and neuropsychological research quite clearly show that once I'm multilingual, I have a much better processing executive skills and cognitive skills are much better. And this is neurolinguistically proved also. Therefore, that is what we should be aiming at. Unfortunately, we are aiming at mother tongue only as a ladder to go on to the next level and then forget about it. And that's the unfortunate part of it.
Any other question? Yeah. Let me first congratulate all of you for such wonderful insights. You know what Professor Pandis said, and that really rings to me as a teacher. What am I? Teacher educator, right? And that is, you have a concept. You're not teaching a concept. It goes around. And while she was talking, I was thinking about that thing, water. Water for a child from the deep villages of Rajasthan has a different 20 concepts as compared to somebody from Delhi or Gurgaon, a different concept. And that's what we need to put it. And when I'm talking as a teacher educator, what's coming to my mind is when we're talking about project teaching, learner-centered. And if we have learner-centered teaching, probably, I don't know, Professor Mointe, will that help my neurodiverse learner, SLD, autistic, to be able to pick up the concepts better and maybe then understand two words, water and neer and pani? I wonder, I think Mona Lisa would like to maybe comment on that, I don't know. So this is the problem that we are facing, is that children with neurodiversities, parents are left with an option because the child as such has limitations because society has put those social constructs. So they tend to move on to the more dominant language. What can we do? I don't know.
I'm just adding with this, children with hearing impaired also. Language is a challenge for them. Hana? So how a teacher will cater their need in a multilingual classroom?
Yes. Come, that is.
You don't start.
Okay.
Hello, thank you so much for the question. Yeah, I feel that they have to be very strong in mother tongue, whichever state, supposedly we are in Odisha and we have to map the children and the home language that they are using at home. And because the parents keep on talking in that language with them to make them understand the language that they understand better and then they move from, because that they are a set who do not understand a lot of things, like the cognitive way of processing, their anxiety, there are many things that children on the spectrum go through. I need not specify here, but yes, we need to focus on mother tongue. That's what we have realized. We have figured that out. Like, we need to map our curriculum around the mother tongue, and we have to involve the parents, involve the community, involve the teachers, all kinds of teachers, those who are around them, and the parents and the teachers, they have to go hand in hand. And then the rest of the society can slowly come in. We can't just push them ahead in the front, no. So there we need to have a systematic curriculum design build up for them. We cannot be talk about multilingualism there. We can't talk about code switching, code missing there, or peer buddies. Yes, we can talk of a mainstream child coming in and helping a neurodivergent child, understand, but that also in mother tongue, not in any other language. That's what our work has brought those things into the forefront. Thank you.
Any other question? Yeah, yes.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I have a question on English language per se. And I'm Bobby, and I'm from Tata Trust, and have been really closely reading, sir, your work. And ma'am, you have been invited to our organization. And so Tata Trust just recently did a small study on landscaping the multilingual aspect in our country, and now an extension of that is in English. That is a demand that has come to us. That where do we place English in the multilingual framework? And had it been maybe just 5 years back, being in the education from so many years, I would also see English with that stepmother treatment, that it's whatever we talk about English, mother tongue and all those other languages are more important for the child to make connection. But now, knowing that we have so many digital facilities which can actually equip a child to immediately switch from one language to the other language and make sense of even at the concept level. So how do we place English in this context, not in the context 5 years back, but now, in fact, today in the videos also you showed there are a lot of applications which immediately convert. Even I have to write an essay, I can write in any language in a minute, and then play with it. So, and English is what it is. we are all, we're not just learning English, we are switching to the mannerism, the way we eat, the way we dress, everything. So identity is changing. It is subtractive, but that's how it is. So I just want to problematize and understand, where do we place English now?
Okay. I'm very sorry, but just to add to the same point, when as an educator I see the parents are wanting to place their children in a global platform through English as a medium, and since languages curtails to multidisciplines, we can be teaching maths, biology, parts of the body, this and that, everything in a language. It's multidisciplinary. Again, if I see a lot of parents with technology as well, everything is English medium based. Our textbooks, our technology, our information grasping, everything is basis, and it's been years and years now that it's been English medium based. How do we transform it from the grassroots level when probably as a parent I have been raised with the English medium. So getting back to my roots, and then my child saying that, oh, since you don't know, you don't communicate in your own language, you've never studied there in that language, why are you promoting all of that? And how would you place me in a global, at a global stage with the mother tongue that you are trying for me to learn? So just to add.
nobody is actually uh, talking about a stepmotherly attitude towards English, it's not that. In fact, what happens is the problem is not it putting English ahead of everything else. That is the problem. Now, world over, English is important, yes, but world over also multilingualism is important. Now, many of the multinationals are now looking for people who are multilingual because the world market is spreading to in China, to India, to Asia and all that. So people are looking for multilingual skills. Now, English is not to be put at that the idea, the spirit of the multilingual education is that develop multilingualism. It's not English as a target language, no. So let us forget about English as being a target language. Target should be multilingualism of a child. Target should be the ability of the child to think in multiple languages, ability of the child to use the multilingual competence in order to feel more confident, in order to go out in the world and express ourselves in whatsoever language that they use. Now, the English pedagogues in India, at least, and all over the world, are rising to this reality. They are increasingly recognized. Since 2007, it has been persistently argued that English language teaching in the classroom can no longer be confined only to English. And we have all advocated that teachers of English should be taught to use mother tongues and other languages of children as a scaffolding that Minati suggested as a scaffolding for better learning of English. Therefore, that is the spirit that we use all languages. The total linguistic repertoire that is at this in the mind of the child should be used to strengthen one's communicative competence, not just English. Therefore, as once our pedagogy, our multilingual education rises to that level where it is not English as a target, but multilingualism as a target, the ability of a child to learn, to communicate, to express in different languages, including English, is more important. And therefore, the process, the pedagogy should, no language is isolated. No language is solitude. Our languages, your mother tongue or Odia or Hindi or Bengali is not an isolated language. Hindi spreads all over from Bihar to Rajasthan, Haryana with all varieties and all that. Therefore, there is no standard Hindi, there is no standard English, there is no standard Odia. So we all languages merge into each other, and that is what we should be actually realizing in process of our education. That English is a part of all the multilingual competence that the child needs to develop. I think that is important, not either putting English on a pedestal like the English goddess that was developed some time back, not English stepmotherly attitude toward English. Putting English in the context of multilingualism and in the context of India is more important.
I'll just say one small thing. You know, when we talk about mother tongue based multilingual education, even if we use the term mother tongue, it has to be understood a little more philosophically. We're asking for recognizing children's first or the strongest languages and build their education through that. I think that's the philosophy, and best multilingual education, obviously, what is the overarching philosophy? That is that of multilingualism. Fine. And so if mother tongue based multilingual education becomes anti-English or anti-language A, then the whole philosophy goes. The moment we start interpreting, and I know where it is, and this fear is genuine because it's a very well-established, huge market driving people's images, emotions, and identities at the pace unfathomable. I mean, so I know this fear is genuine, but our response is that the moment this becomes exclusive, then we have lost the battle. So mother tongue based multilingual education is about a very language inclusive practice. Children and parents still have the right to decide where their children study. बात है कि the parents often don't see, like for many of us, education is about knowing English. Education is about knowing concepts, knowledge, It's not about knowing a language. But then that is what even the educated people think, So we need to rethink about, and this fear is very genuine. We'll encounter a lot of these fears. But I think we have to approach it more philosophically.
Hello everyone, I'm Anisha, I'm from Macmillan Education. I have a very simple question actually. So we know that India as a country, much of the states that we have, how do you then make sure that the classroom is inclusive for that child as well, someone?
You have to make sure that those languages enter the classrooms only. That's the first thing we have to do.
See, large segment of our education and the classrooms are actually multilingual. Now, unfortunately, the model which has been handed over to us from the West is a one language to another language. Spanish, English, bilingual program is, and French, English. These are the two which are most known. Now, in our context, that doesn't work. And in our context, a classroom doesn't have a mother tongue. Classroom has multiple mother tongues. Therefore, taking up from the methodology of multilingual education, it should be possible for a teacher to come into a classroom where there are 3 to 5 mother tongues, broadly defined. The teaching practices have to reinforce all the languages. I have seen programs in Canada where all languages are reinforced, identity development,
So
as
I
you
was
said.
asking a question more from, like, if I take a metropolitan city and it's a school where you have 40 children, probably from 38 different backgrounds, different languages altogether. So how do you make a classroom like that inclusive, multilingual? Because it's a huge challenge for the teacher also. So, I mean, what is the best way forward in such a scenario?
We have written about it. I think it's too complicated an issue to deal with right now in a short question. We started an experiment with the Key School, about which you saw some from 15 years back, where we taught teachers how to deal with a classroom which has multiple languages, how each child's identity can be reinforced, and how the child can be made to learn her own language as even when she is learning other languages. There are methodology for that, and the future of the policy that we talked about today is that kind of a policy where the practice should be to deal with multiple languages as resources, not as problems in our classroom.
Can I just come in, please? So in the morning session, you must have seen a girl talking about how she has picked up 7 languages. So that is the institution, and thanks to Mr. Sanjay Saur and ma'am, that we could get access to these situations, which we were not also very aware of, where there are 18 languages, I mean children from different regions, and with 18 languages, and all under one roof. It's a residential school. And how this one little girl who comes to the school, and she says that I learned 7 languages. Why? Because every evening I would ask my friends that how was your mother saying, or how is this in your language or that language. And today you can, she said that when we asked her what you want to become, she said, I want to be a surgeon. So I said, do you know? So she said, had I not come over here, I wouldn't have known what is a surgeon, because where I was, I didn't know. So I think a lot of questions which are coming from this group over here is from a very metropolitan and cosmopolitan background. And where I think you probably assume that English is the way. But maybe for the child the child we met, could be that for her, Oriya was the target, because she's coming from a different rural background where she's learning Santali, Koi, Gondi, some other languages. They don't know. So Yeah, so can we just have Dr. Saur, you can always explain that better, I think, because I think it was
Because
important to see the first.
Professor Achyuta Samanta is the founder of KIT and KSS. So there we have 62 varieties of tribes, where 13 kind of tribes are going to extinct. The language. So there we have the language labs for them. The children come from very early age, 3 to 4 years old. When they come, they try to, what ma'am told, that ODI is a target for them. Now when we are discussing about, like ma'am told, and many people are first talking about the English medium schools, they're in metropolis. But if you look at the children, those who go for education, you look at the state medium schools and the English medium schools, you'll get a difference. So here we are, 15 to 20% are going to the metropolis, but all the other children are going to local state level schools. So there the multilingualism really takes an important place. That's all. Thank you.
Ma, I have a question for the audience. Okay. But she was raising her hand since first question.
Hello, good afternoon, and I have been very fortunate to attend this. I am a UN volunteer from Kalinga, KIT and KISS. So I am doing PhD right now. So my question is that we have heard many things about it, and our founder sir is doing a lot for preserving the indigenous language. So how you guys are, like, what do you think about the long-term cultural benefit of incorporating indigenous knowledge, indigenous language into a formal education? And what is the global balance between these with the global language and indigenous language? Thank you.
I can answer.
Questions which are coming are meant
Uh,
yeah, it's like a full consultation on these topics. Thanks for sharing those with us.
Can I
but I
answer?
think
We will be less arrogant. And you will tell us how to live a life. You know, the whole climate debate is around this, that the actual knowledge of how to preserve climate, we are losing because we are losing certain languages and the knowledge the speakers of that language have. And those are the communities that actually struggled in their everyday life. So preservation is a very, very understated in a word. I think by documenting, preservation is bad, yeah. I don't want to use that word. Those languages and those knowledge systems have to be there. They have to be alive all the time. If that requires preservation, do it. Otherwise, it should be used in all forums so that it stays alive. Education will change. You think you have got best of the education? No. We have learned how to fight with each other, how to separate from myself from each other. Those tendencies will be less, will probably be more human. So I think what you are saying should be the primary goal of education. It shouldn't be to build a room like this, but to create a world that is livable. I have one question, then you can take others. Okay, my question to everybody is that all classes are multilingual classes. You know, you have 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 languages in the class. That's a huge challenge for a teacher because the teacher is supposed to teach using a textbook, Teacher is told how to teach, you know. So if it is a difficult job for teachers, should we then sacrifice the most fundamental cognitive, intellectual, and emotional needs of children? We can't, no? So you have the answer. So the problem is that we have to then struggle. We are not ready to struggle. We need different pedagogy, we need different methods, we need different materials, we need a different kind of language lab. Our understanding, that you were telling, no? In that room, you have textbooks developed by, Pratham, LLF, and, Bhopal organization. And children enjoyed reading those because those are good books. You need classrooms to have those kinds of books. So I think teachers' job is difficult, policymakers' job is difficult, but we have to address that instead of asking children to compromise. I think you have the answer. Other question, somebody asked, how do I teach? Send that person to a classroom. Children speaking 13 languages are there. Will you run away? You'll not. You'll do something. That there is a communication getting established between teacher and students, between students, among all. That is the pedagogy we need, whatever that is. So, yeah, we don't debate pedagogy. We talk about, and all, that's what all of us are doing. Production of storybooks is very easy. Documentation of language is very difficult, but it's still concrete, Pedagogy is that messy stuff we don't talk about. I think the country is at a stage when we talk about what we do with all the books we are producing, all the experiences that children bring in. Tell me one thing, if I do not understand mathematics, not as just Jodna, but as a mathematical concept, whatever experiences all of you bring in, I'll not be able to use them to teach even a class 3 child. I need to understand addition as a mathematical concept to teach addition using children's experiences. That is what our teacher training programs do not give. As long as you give, MLE will fall in place.
See, if you assume that teacher is there only to teach and others are to learn, that is the wrong model. Teacher is part of the classroom, so all of them learn together, and that makes it much easier actually.
In fact, I just say this, that go into a sports field where children from different languages, backgrounds are playing together. How do they communicate? They all understand the rules of the game.
They don't need a teacher or an interpreter.
Well, a teacher can facilitate. I don't want to keep the teacher out of that situation. But I think a sports field gives us a much better analogy of what should be happening inside a classroom, that how the teacher and children should be engaging with each other to be able to learn language. So for me, that is actually a concept that we should start thinking about more when we're thinking of multilingualism.
I would say thanks. We can always, we are going for high tea. We can always discuss there.
Let's take the last question.
Okay.
No question, just a reflection. Reflection. This is, it's just giving me a very nice high as a teacher, as a pedagogue, that I am not a teacher. I'm just a facilitator. Right? And we have this thing called in pedagogy, zero lecture. And when we try zero lecture, the learning is much more for me than others. So that's what we need to do, and we will learn.
Thank you very much. To the participants here, I never thought, I was really not so optimistic when we started. After lunch, generally these sessions are not so interactive, but we had. And thanks to all the panelists here for the time, and for to all of you for giving your time. And let us now proceed for some tea and more interactive session there. Thank you.